We have Jim Miller here. Now, you are very famous around the Waupaca area because you do this. I would. You do this huge pumpkin carving event every single October for the public.
Yes, I've been doing it I've been carving for 16 years. I've had a big display now probably for 12 years.
I was looking at pictures on Facebook of some of the pumpkins that you carved, and I am just in awe of your talent. So I wanted to have you on today because I want you to show us what you do.
All right.
Not that I'll be as good as you, but
no,
but that's all right. So why don't we start with the first pumpkin over here?
What we do first off is we take a pattern. You want to find a nice pattern, and you have to fit the pattern to the pumpkin. And then what I do then is I take just your basic Elmer's school glue, purple preferably, and you coat the back of it, and then you stick it on. And then the next step you have to do, once you get it all on and cut out, and this is before you even hollow out the pumpkin from the inside. Then once you stick it on, you cut it down to the size you want it, and what you have to do is you have to stencil it. So it's kind of, I call it tattooing the pumpkin. And what I use is I use a standard, these are knives you can get from Fleet Farm or Walmart, and they usually come with a saw. And then I take the saw and I cut it down, and this is something that I've done, and I don't think anybody else does this around that I know of, and I made it into a sharp point. So what I do then is I take it and I transfer it, the pattern onto the pumpkin. And once you do that, you go all the way around it. And what's kind of neat is now to this part, I don't know if you can zoom in on that. What we have now is the pumpkin is now stenciled onto, the pattern is now stenciled onto the pumpkin. And what I use then after that, I use an assortment of tools. I use X-Acto knives. I use gouges, linoleum gouges, and I'll also use clay hooks. And the thing that's different with me is I don't ever carve a pumpkin all the way through like a traditional jack-o'-lantern.
I noticed that earlier.
Yes.
That with this one, it isn't carved all the way through.
And I can still get a three-dimensional because what I do is on like the Indian face here, you'll be able to see it when it's lit up, is carved of probably 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch deeper than the feathers of the Indian. So you're going to still get that three-dimensional look, and that's called a shading method. And the traditional method is a cutout. And what a cutout is just the Indian is made for a cutout. So you would basically take all these, and those would be cut out with a saw. And then you would have that out. But what happens then is all these pieces, the white is the pumpkin. So you have just those thin lines. And after about 2 days,
they're going to fall out.
Your pumpkin falls apart. And I have to make my stuff last for 3 weeks.
So we can all see them?
Yes.
Yes.
So what we do, and that's when I started developing my own technique, I guess. And it started about 8 years ago as I started doing that. And what we do now, and I'll go through and I'll cut the bottom out and then scoop it. And some of the things that are really neat.
And you were showing me how you do that.
We take the bottom out, and then what we do, and I use a drywall saw to cut it out.
Tools and their uses is what my husband would say.
And then what we do is we'll scoop it all out from the bottom. And one of the things that I found that works the best for scooping things out is I use a tuna can, because you can get a good grip on it, and it's not like the handles where you have a bad handles. You know, the handles are tall. And you can scoop them out with a tuna can, and it works really well.
And then you were showing me how you skewer the bottom.
Then we skewer it back on once we put the light in, and we'll put a skewer in there. And it's kind of tough this way, but it just skewers on there, and then you tip it back up. And the other great thing about doing it from the bottom is you don't have to worry then about the top. As the pumpkin gets old, it shrinks and it falls in.
And the top of the pumpkin. There's a reason I don't carve pumpkins, and because first of all, I'm not very artistic, and secondly, they always fall apart.
Yeah, and
so now I got some good hints.
It's not as hard as it looks, and it's not as artistic as you think it is. Most of these are patterns I get, and I get them from the website, Stonykins, or there's a few other websites out there that are really good. And over the years, I've come up with a few tricks of my own. And what I do after I carve the inside out and clean it all out and is ready to go out in my front yard, I'll take a armor block or a mold block, and I'll spray down the inside. So you eliminate the mold for as long as you can, and that helps an awful lot. And then what I do on the front side so it doesn't dry out so much is I used to put chemicals and things like that on it, and I came up with a Murphy's oil soap, which is just a soap, and it's not harmful to like animals or dogs or anything like that. So we spray that down. I usually have my daughter or my kids when they're home spray them down for me, because your fingers get pretty sore when you're spraying 70 pumpkins. But you know, it's pretty fast, and it seems to help. I've had pumpkins last up to a month, which is unbelievable.
Well,
nobody does that.
You start putting them out, because when you and I were talking on the phone, just to give everybody an idea, you carve pumpkins now starting like the first week of October for sometimes 16 or 18 hours a day to get this whole setup done.
Yes. What I'll have upwards of 70 pumpkins in my garage that are just like this one. Nothing is carved out of the bottom, but the stencil is on it, and it's ready to go. And then once the 20th comes is when I start to put my first batch out, so I start carving on the 17th. And from then on, it's crazy.
Non-stop carving.
Yes.
So last year, you took donations for a purpose. Are you going to do the same thing this year?
We always collect canned goods for the food pantry in town. And then we also turn around and take some of the proceeds after we cover our expenses and things like that. We go out and buy more canned goods for the food pantry. And I would have to say, Waupaca last year, they donated more than 600 canned goods. So it was really great. And then we probably put another 400 in ourselves.
And we've had the food pantry on the show, so I think that's fabulous. That is terrific. Where can we find you now? After the 20th of October, right? After
the 20th, I'll be in my garage.
You'll be sleeping is what you'll be doing.
That too. But go ahead.
Where can we find the display?
We're on Golke Road, which is out by Hartman Creek. So if you go out on 54, you take a left at the town hall, and you go down about a mile and then take a right, and that's Golke Road, and you can't miss us. Right now I've got over 200 pumpkins in my yard, and they're just waiting to come in and get stencils on. So you can find us there. There'll be posters all around the town. Chamber of Commerce knows about me, so if you call the Chamber, they'll be more than happy to direct you out. And you can find us on Facebook, and you can look at Pumpkin Time at the Millers, and we'll have some directions out there for you too.
Fabulous. Sounds like fun. I am going to look forward to seeing this display.
All right.
I'm kind of ashamed that I didn't know about it until this year, but I am really excited about seeing what you do, because I looked at them online, and you just do some beautiful work, Jim.
Thank you.
So thanks for coming on and showing us and telling